The tiny house project in St. Louis. We'll have that story next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Well, you've heard of tiny houses, and now we have more about that and what's happening right here in St. Louis. So to my right, I'd like to introduce you to our guests. We have Diane Marshak. She is with Social Justice for All, and also here is Bob Deneau. He's the STEM coordinator for the Rockwood School District. Welcome both. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having us.
What about this tiny house phenomenon? And I'm not just talking about here in St. Louis, but you know, we've been hearing about tiny houses for a few years in the news. What do you make of it generally?
I mean, I really think it's something that people are seeing a need to kind of pare down. We accumulate so much stuff that maybe living more simply, maybe that'll help our lifestyles a little bit. And really, eventually we're running out of space to put all these homes anyway. So why are we building these huge homes when we could go definitely something smaller?
And it certainly is more affordable for
Right.
folks that can't build a 2,000 square foot home.
Right. And it's really captured our attention, hasn't it? I mean, I see things on television, they have specials about it. I think there might even be a series about tiny houses.
Oh
There
yeah,
is,
there definitely are. I mean, it is something that you see is maybe a trend, and they come in all different shapes and sizes. So I think people are definitely looking at it as a viable option for living.
Mm-hmm. But is it necessarily, and I'm not talking about the project you're involved in, but tiny houses, is it necessarily about saving money for people? That's not it always, is it?
No, the downsizing part too, and not having so much stuff. I mean, make life more simple.
Yeah, and you'll see some of them are mobile. The ones we're not doing are not that way, but some of them they can wheel these things around wherever they want to across the country, so it does offer a bit of freedom as well.
Uh-huh. Well, let's talk about the tiny house project, Diane. That's specifically why you're here. That's the project that you're involved in. Mm-hmm. But you are also in an organization, Social Justice for All. So what's the background on that?
Okay, so Social Justice for All was formed in 2016, and we're made up of just volunteers in the West County area, and we were formed just to promote the knowledge of the negativity of racial injustice and economic injustice in our area. Mm-hmm. And that was why we formed. And so we're focusing on 3 different areas: housing, education, and employment. And so we have various volunteers in the group, and some may have the passion of helping work on employment issues or education issues. And my passion is housing and the homeless, affordable housing and the homeless.
Aside from housing, can you give me an example of some of the projects that your group has worked on?
Okay, one of our volunteers has started a mentoring program through, he was a former employee of Monsanto, and so he has formed a mentoring program at LaSalle Middle School, and so folks come in and mentor the kids there, so that's working on the education piece. They're working with another organization, can't remember the name now, as far as helping them grow or helping some of the, so we actually focused 2 neighborhoods in North City. We're trying to focus on, we just kind of focused on the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood, which is where the tiny houses are going to go, and also in the Ville. So we're doing a little work in those 2 neighborhoods. And so as far as the employment piece, we're trying to bring folks in the Ville in connection with other organizations that specialize in employment. So we don't want to do it all. We're just trying to connect folks to organizations that we know that are doing, that are helping in other areas that they may need help. So we're kind of like the coordinators. We're trying to like being coordinators. We don't want to start from scratch and build all these different aspects. We're just coordinating folks to different other organizations. That's basically what we do.
I see. Bob, tell me a little bit about the Rockwood School District.
So we are a district of approximately 21,000 students in West St. Louis County. We cover a vast area from Fenton to Chesterfield to Wildwood. So we have 4 high schools this year that we kind of pitched this idea of geometry and construction, which is really kind of the class that is tied into this project. And we had two of those high schools, Eureka High School and Rockwood Summit, offer that course this year. So those two schools have been heavily involved in this tiny house project.
Now, you're the STEM coordinator for the Rockwood School District, which is science, technology,
Engineering,
engineering,
and math.
And math. I never get that straight. Of course, that wasn't around back when I was in school. That's fairly recent movement.
Absolutely, and you're seeing, and STEM is something that really is a big economic force right now. If you look at the jobs that are being created, the high growth industry jobs, you'll see many of those in those STEM fields. But at the same time, I think the thing that people forget about with STEM is many of those hands-on trade jobs that really have declined in numbers as far as people being interested in them. And so there's a lot of applied mathematics that goes into a construction trade, whether it's framing, whether it's doing plumbing, electricity, and so we're really trying to bring an emphasis back to that to show students that this is another option in a high growth area and a high need area.
And so the reason you're here, and we'll get into it a little bit later, is that you're involved in this project with Social Justice for All, the Tiny House Project.
Absolutely. We've formed a partnership with Social Justice for All on this project, and we are in the process of actually building the tiny homes for them that will then serve as the transitional homeless housing.
Right. So how did all that start, Diane, this project with you?
Okay. Well, when Social Justice for All first formed, we were trying to figure out what we're going to work on, right? There's so many different issues. So, and so we focused on the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood, which is where North Grand Neighborhood Services is located.
And how'd you pick that up?
Someone in our group knew Father Tim Cook, who is the pastor of St. Teresa and Bridget in that neighborhood. And so North Grand Neighborhood Services was formed in 2005 by the pastor of St. Teresa at that time, Father Gary Meyer. And so in 2016, Gary was he was no longer the pastor, but he was still the executive director of North Grand Neighborhood Services. So I met with him just to kind of, because they actually, in 2005, they started what they call the Solomon Project. And so they are trying to meet the needs in their neighborhood of affordable housing. So that was the goal. They met with community leaders and individuals in the community and tried to determine what was the most need at that time for their neighborhood. And they determined it was housing.
Can you maybe paint a picture of the kind of people you're dealing with? And you talk about the needs in this neighborhood, maybe for people who've never been to that neighborhood. Can you paint a picture of what the needs are and what the conditions are like?
Well, it's in North City, and there's a lot of vacant buildings, a lot of vacant homes, a lot of vacant lots. Most of the folks there are on the low income scale, so they don't have a lot of money. There's not a lot of employment in that area, so there's not a lot of money coming in there, so they need affordable housing. And so anyway, that's how I met Father Gary, is through North Grand Neighborhood Services and their Solomon Project. And so the idea of a tiny house, we just talked about it. It was just a brief conversation about tiny houses, and I thought, wow, that's great. Because I'm an advocate for the homeless. And so tiny houses and the homeless, there's all these vacant lots. That was just an idea.
When you say there's always vacant lots, you're saying there's a place to put them.
Certainly.
Right.
Certainly. And they're cheap. You can get these lots very cheap. And actually, North Grand Neighborhood Services owns a few vacant lots.
Doesn't the city even have a program now where they're giving away lots to people that like mow the grass on them and stuff like that?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, North Grand Neighborhood Services, currently, they have 11 rental properties. So they're currently providing low, affordable housing for folks in the neighborhood. So this is kind of, the tiny houses are kind of just along their same lines. It's just a little bit different.
But did this idea just take off immediately
No,
when you
it
first
did not.
started talking about it?
It did not, no. It went, months went by, and I
What
saw
were the hang-ups?
no money. We didn't have any funding. It was just an idea. We didn't have any funding. We didn't have anyone to build the houses. So Father, I met Gary again, and he said, well, what's going on with the tiny house project? I said, well, I don't know. Nothing's going on. So then actually, that was maybe in February of 2017. And then in March of 2017, we had a presentation at my church. Well, actually, it was a panel discussion on homelessness, and it was at my parish, Incarnate Word in West County. And so after the the panel discussion was over, we talked about our tiny house idea. And a lady jumps up in the audience and says, "Oh my gosh, my school's building a tiny house this year as part of a geometry and construction class." And that was Gail. Gail, what's her name?
Gail
Pyfel.
Pyfel.
I can never remember her last name.
Gail
Anyway, she
Pyfel,
jumps up and she says, "Oh gosh, we can provide the labor." And I said, "All right, we're in. If we can find the funding and you can build it," and we already have North Grand Neighborhood Services donated the lot. They said they would give us a lot. If we could come up with the funding, we can do it.
And Bob, can you explain how you first got drawn into this?
Yeah, so with geometry and construction, we're always looking for ways that students can apply the learning that they're doing in their traditional classes. So when you think about your days maybe in math class, it was always like, when am I ever going to use this?
That's exactly what I thought in math class.
Yeah, many people think the same way. So we're always kind of looking for something new and different that we can do in our schools to really start making those connections for students. So we actually, our secondary math coordinator, she actually saw this program out of Loveland, Colorado called Geometry and Construction. Was started by two gentlemen there who took this concept, formed an LLC, and were kind of pushing the program out nationwide for anyone who was interested. So we had them come out to Rockwood. They came out, met with our teachers, met with our administrators, took us through some of the activities. We were so interested, we sent a few folks out to Colorado to see this in action. And then once we saw it in action and we put it out there, we had schools that were interested in having this course. So that's where this year we have two of our high schools, Eureka High School and Rockwood Summit, who are carrying this course. And part of the course is you have to have a project. And so Gail, being one of the teachers, goes, "We have a project that we can take part in." So that's where the Tiny House Connection started.
So what are the students actually doing in relation to the tiny house project?
The students are actually doing all the construction. When they go out, so we have a architecture set of plans. Our teachers almost are kind of like the foreman in a way. Every day there's student teams, and those teams have a specific task for that day, whether it's building the walls, whether it's putting in a window, painting, doing the roof. We get them up on the rooftop, we get them all harnessed up for safety, of course. And so the students are the ones who are really doing all of the construction. They use all the power tools. They've gone through safety training for all of that. So literally, the students are the ones who are building this house.
It's like a shop class on steroids, sort of.
It really is, and it's really more than shop class. Think about in a typical shop class, you might build furniture, or clocks, or things like that. Where now we're going out onto a job site. Literally, we walk out the door of the shop room, and there we are on a job site. And we couldn't do this without partners. So we brought in different trade organizations, different companies, whether it's electric, HVAC, and so those folks are actually giving us their time to actually work with our students.
What a project for young people to be involved in. I mean, I'm thinking, they come home, "What'd you do at school today, kid?" "Oh, I built a house."
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and it's definitely something that obviously at those schools they can see everything. So
All right,
it's
we're
a very
going
easy
to
project
take
to
a short break, and we'll be back, and we have some images to look at too of one of the houses under construction. You can kind of explain about that. We're talking about the Tiny House Project, and the organization behind it is Social Justice for All. We'll be back with more City Corner right after this.
Every time I hear the alarm bell go off in school, I think it's an air raid.
A lot of houses in our neighborhood have been destroyed.
I like to close my ears and sing songs whenever the bombs come close.
I'm worried our new neighbors won't like us.
But I know it's all gonna be worth it.
I just want my family to be safe.
But these are not my words.
These are not my words.
These are not my words.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. We're talking about the Tiny House Project in St. Louis today. Our guests are Diane Marshak. She's with Social Justice for All, and that's the organization behind the Tiny House Project. And also here is Bob Deneau. He's the STEM coordinator for the Rockwood School District, which is partnering in that whole event. And so just to recap a little bit, Diane, the idea for the Tiny House Project in St. Louis, building small houses that that are going to be, I guess, donated is the right word.
Correct.
To homeless people, to give them a place to live and stuff. And you got the Rockwood School District involved. And can you kind of recap what that relationship is?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so Social Justice for All is raising the funds for the material to build the houses. Rockwood
And
School District is building them.
We provide the labor and all the tools to get the job done, and they're supplying us with, the materials.
Yes,
You
and
know-
then.
you know what? Go ahead.
Sorry, and then ultimately they will be moved from the schools into the city, and then they will become, North Grand Neighborhood Services will become the owners of the tiny houses.
Right. And what were the students' reaction when they first heard about this project? Were people excited on it? Did you have to sell them on this idea or what?
No, not at all. Especially taking on this was a rather large project for our very first year. They were definitely all in. They actually built a model of these homes and a scale model out of balsa wood. So they got an idea before they started of here's what this thing's going to look like.
How big, I guess it can vary, but how big usually is a tiny house?
I mean, your smallest ones might be 125 square feet. We're going up to,
364.
364.
Yeah.
So anywhere in between.
Are they always, is it one room?
Many times you'll have them, it'll be like one big room that then maybe is subdivided out in a sense. It's not like we think of our traditional homes that like you've got, obviously the bathroom is going to be private, but
Right.
Many times the bedroom can be open to
Or it might be a
family
loft,
space.
like a little loft bedroom
Yes,
in a corner or
absolutely.
something like that.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. So our houses are just the bedroom and a living area and a bathroom.
I want to ask you this, Bob. Being in the Rockwood School District, you're in West County. The students out there that live in West County are building tiny houses for areas in North St. Louis that they may not be familiar with. So I'm just wondering, how do I put it? How the young people out there relate to this? Because I'm just assuming, I don't know statistics, but down in Rockwood, I'm sure your homeless numbers are very low.
Yeah, I would
So
agree, yeah.
it's almost like another world to them. So how does that work?
I think it's a huge learning opportunity. And I know, Diane, you came in and talked to our students about what this project is really all about. And I think having a social aspect behind this project has really added a benefit that we probably didn't even foresee. I think we're opening the students' eyes to, here's what is the reality for some folks. This was really big during the winter when we had
Because
to
it's
build.
probably not something those kids think about on a daily basis because they don't see it.
No,
Certainly.
no. When we had to go build on a cold winter day, it really helped because we could honestly say, you know what, there are folks who they have to be out here 24/7, and you're out here for an hour and a half, and that was I think a motivating factor for some of those students.
Yeah, because I think when I visited one of the classes, it was a cold day, and I brought up that point too.
We've got some images I want to share with people. First, we have a group. I'm not sure if it's students or what, Bob, but you can tell me who we're looking at.
Yeah, so this is the group at Rockwood Summit High School. So this is the geometry and construction course. You can see there, before they even had to build the tiny home, there were a couple smaller projects they did. They had to learn how to build a staircase, and then you can see also the tiny balsa.
Yeah, I'm wondering, before you were telling me all the things these young people were doing, I'm wondering where the training came for all of that.
Yeah, so we actually, our teachers go through 4 days of training for geometry and construction. So they did that over the summer where they go through the curriculum. We do have one teacher in the pairing who is a construction teacher. So they have more of that industrial technology background, and another person who's a math teacher. So they bring in those experiences as well.
Do they ever make mistakes?
Oh yeah, we say of course measure twice, cut once, but yes, there are going to be mistakes. Students are going to make mistakes, and so we just have to work around those. We have to problem solve.
Now this really, you've just been doing this, haven't you, since October? Is that about right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, how long does it take to build a tiny house? And how many kids work on it?
So we have classes. Our classes are around 30 students, and they work on it probably every other day for about a 90-minute block of time. And we're getting to the point right now where we're almost ready to drywall everything in. All the outsides are done. So really, when we're finished with this part, it'll be more or less the finish work that needs to be done. Our goal is everything's drywalled up, all electricity, plumbing is in there, and we're ready to hand
Yeah,
it
and
over.
you're making these on the school sites, and then you're going to transport them to wherever they're going to be permanently.
Yes.
Right.
That is correct.
You said an average house is about, at least you're making maybe 300-something square feet. We have an image here of, I think, a finished interior. And let's take a look at that now.
That is not ours, but that is a sample of a tiny house, yes.
And so it'd be just basically the room we're looking at. Can you maybe describe what I'm seeing? Are there certain things to point out about functioning of it or something?
Well, there's a living area.
Is
and
that that's like a bed loft? Am I seeing that correctly on the top?
That one has a loft. Our
Right.
houses will not have a loft. So ours is a little is larger than this, so that the bedroom's on the same floor.
There must be a lot of thought, like storage and cabinets in the right places and all that, right? Because when you're only dealing with a little bit, every inch counts.
Yeah, if you can find any extra square footage for storage, that's a huge bonus, especially when you're in such a small space, because you never have enough.
These two houses that you're building, what do they cost?
So I've tried to come up with an estimate based on, because we've gotten a lot of donations and we've gotten a lot of material at cost. So I'm trying to determine the retail price. So I would say between $20,000 and $25,000.
And that's before they're installed on site?
Correct. Yes, there's a lot more.
Because there's plumbing and...
Yeah, a lot more cost involved to move them into the city.
I know that, let's talk about the money involved, because I know you have a GoFundMe
Yes.
page and so forth. So where's the money coming from? How much you need? How you doing?
Okay, so we've got, like I said, we've gotten a lot of donations, a lot of material at cost. The GoFundMe page, we've gotten donations through that. We've also gotten some grants from the Home Builders Association, Ameren, and Ascension Health. We've gotten grants from them. So we have enough funding to finish the homes.
To finish these two?
Yes, and so the next big chunk of funding that we need is to move the house. Actually, we're getting the donation of moving the houses. Someone is moving the houses for us for free.
So tell me how the city of St. Louis comes into this, because they've got to be involved somehow if you're putting houses in neighborhoods.
Yes.
What's been their involvement, and are they enthusiastic?
They are. They actually are very supportive. They approved so we had a architectural company design the plans. They were approved by the city. And the city has gone out to the sites, to the school sites, multiple times to inspect. Because in order for them to bring into the city, they have to be inspected by the city. So they're very supportive. They would like to see more tiny houses in smaller homes in the city because it's affordable housing.
Right. We have a series of images we're going to look at now, and you two please just contribute what you want to say. We're starting at the beginning, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. So you can see that we're actually building this off the ground. Some people ask, why are we doing that? And that's actually for the transportation purposes, to be able to hopefully be able either to not have to jack it up quite so much to slide something underneath there. But you're seeing it really from the beginning. We have our engineered floor trusses in there, and the first wall was going up, and this one was at Rockwood Summit.
Let's go to the next one.
So again, a little bit further on, you're seeing here that now we've got most of the outside, at least framing and sheeting completed. This was where they were getting ready to put the roof on. The house is really starting to take shape, and I think that's when it became real for the students, when it started looking like a house.
Right.
And obviously from the inside here, you can see, this was again during that project. We're, getting that roof on, making sure all the walls are in, getting ready to eventually put in the windows and doors to kind of seal it up.
The work looks pretty professional to me.
It actually does. And so again, we worked with, we had a gentleman from the Carpenters Union come out. We've had folks from different trade organizations, different companies that really could provide some expertise so that it was looking professional, because we did have to pass the inspection.
Are these students here?
These are actually the students from Eureka High School. So you're seeing the second house, and so you can see they look almost, they're identical. They're supposed to be. And so yeah, this is the group that's out there at Eureka High School. And this is, again, you can see this is the students getting hands-on. Everything, we went ahead and did everything with a hammer, no pneumatic nailing guns or anything like that. So the students had to put a little bit more brute force into it. But for every aspect of the job, they're the ones who are doing it.
Are these students necessarily going into this kind of field when they graduate, or is this just something on the side they're doing, or?
I think for some students, this may pique an interest in an area that maybe they never thought of before. We've had some students talk about, this has driven them more into the architectural realm.
I see the house is coming along.
Absolutely. So you can see it's got a little paint on it. It's got some decorative trim on there. So, when it's all done, I mean, they're going to be very unique looking houses, but we really hope that this benefits students, even if they don't go into this field, that they now have a better understanding of what they could actually do on their own as well.
And Diane, I think you kind of brought up the point before that that's what Bob just said is one part of it, but the other part is bringing awareness to social issues. So it's kind of a twofold thing.
Definitely. And that's, that's a benefit to the children. For their whole lives. I mean, they can see how what they're doing is actually going to help someone else that's in need.
So when do you think these two houses are going to be in North St. Louis? Do you have an idea?
Well, we're still working on the infrastructure on the site, so that has to be ready. So we have to get the sewer lines and the water lines and the foundations built. And so until we do that, we can't move them. Hopefully, we're hoping in June sometime.
And what's your strategy, or maybe is it up to you or the city, about like how many people are going to live in a tiny house? How are you going to find them? How are they going to be grouped together? Do we know anything like that?
Yes, there is a minimum requirement, a minimum number of folks, or maximum number of folks that can live in the houses. Because they're so small, there can only be two folks per house. So the Rockwood School District is building 2, and then we're going to build a third one on the site. So there will be 3 houses.
And what do you see in the future for this, either of you?
I would love for it to continue. This is a great model. The kids learn skills. They learn about a social issue. It provides affordable housing for folks in need. But
And I'm
it all
thinking
comes
also
down-
there are going to be some vacant lots that are going to have
Yes.
cute little houses on them. So the neighborhoods are going to look better.
Right. It all comes down to funding.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, for us, we're in the process right now of what is our next project. We're reaching out to other organizations, and we're showing them, here's what we can do. What else is out there? How could we partner with you?
Well, you guys, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us. It'll be really exciting to see what happens in the future. And we want to remind people maybe to help with your GoFundMe campaign, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
The name of the organization is Social Justice for All. You can go to gofundme.com/tinyhouses/STL. And I guess we encourage people to donate and get involved. And Bob, thank all the students for their role in this too.
I will do that.
Thank you both for your story.
Thank
Tiny
you.
Houses.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
It's the Tiny House Project in St. Louis. I'm Steve Potter. Thanks for watching City Corner. Join us next time. Bye.